Hello there, this is the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon Ofem, and here are the top stories. Senate fails to conclude Electoral Act amendments after hours of deliberation. US sends ground troops to Nigeria after December air strikes. Several killed, houses and others burnt as bandits attack Katsina community. ADC is no match for APC, says National Chairman Tawe Yilwatsta. On a foreign scene, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer criticizes Russian attacks on Ukraine energy site. And in sports, Morocco to appeal AFCON bans and fines after final chaos. Details coming up in just a moment. First on the news, the Senate on Tuesday again failed to conclude deliberations on the proposed amendment of the Electoral Act after several hours in a closed-door executive session. Lawmakers dissolved into the executive session shortly after plenary commenced to consider the report of an ad hoc committee set up to harmonize the senators' input on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The closed session lasted about 5 hours. When plenary resumed, Senate President Godswill Akpabio did not disclose details of the discussions on the bill. Instead, Akpabio announced burial arrangements for the late Okechukwu Ezia, who represented Enugu North Senatorial District until his death. No information was provided on the outcome of the deliberations on the Electoral Act. The session followed the Senate's decision last week to constitute a 7-member ad hoc committee for an earlier 3-hour executive session to further scrutinize the proposed amendment. Announcing the committee, Akpabio said it was mandated to contribute, galvanize and distill the opinion of senators on the bill. Akpabio said the committee was given a maximum of 3 days to complete its assignment and report back to the Senate. Although the House of Representatives has passed the bill, Akpabio urged caution from the upper chamber. Despite repeated executive sessions, the Senate has yet to pass the bill, marking the third unsuccessful attempt in 2 weeks. The Senate, however, said it will not rush the bill, citing the volume of past election litigation for the 2023 polls and the need for careful legislative scrutiny. The United States has dispatched a small team of troops to Nigeria following recent security cooperation between the two countries. Gad Vin Anderson, the general in charge of U.S. Africa Command AFRICOM, spoke of the development in the press briefing on Tuesday. It is the first acknowledgement of U.S. boots on the ground in Nigeria since the Donald Trump presidency launched missile strikes targeting terrorists in Sokoto on Christmas Day. Anderson said the move followed his meeting with President Bola Tinubu in Rome last year. He did not provide further details. It is also unclear when the team arrived in Nigeria. Weeks ago, Alison Hooker, Under-Secretary of State led a U.S. team of 8 federal agencies to Abuja for a bilateral working group meeting with Nigerian security officials. Nuhu Ribadu, National Security Advisor NSA, headed the Nigerian delegation. The meeting was in response to the redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern (CPC) by Trump. Trump had threatened to send troops into Nigeria guns blazing to wipe out the terrorists killing our Christians. On December 25, the U.S. launched airstrikes against 2 terrorist enclaves in Baoni Forest in Tangaza local government area of Sokoto State. Meanwhile, an attack by armed bandits in Faskari local government area of Katsina State has left several persons dead, houses, shops and vehicles destroyed, and many rendered homeless. The fresh attack took place in the Doma community Tafoki area around about 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday. The bandits, armed with dangerous weapons including AK-47 rifles, invaded the community 5 months after the peace agreement, where prominent traditional leaders and security personnel became their first target. According to the chairman of Faskari Local Government Council, Siraju Daudawa, the incident was a suspected reprisal attack. Meanwhile, the Commissioner of Police, Katsina State Bello Shehu, has commiserated with the families and friends of the victims of the deadly armed bandits attack. Shehu also condemned the attack, further directed the deployment of additional resources to expedite the investigation and arrest of the perpetrators of the dastardly act. He noted that, unfortunately, the assailants have had fatally shot 13 persons and escaped the scene before the arrival of the operatives. While normalcy has since been restored to the affected area, investigations into the incident have also commenced. Still on insecurity, no fewer than 4 persons, including a soldier and 3 suspected bandits, have been killed in a coordinated attack on Sabongeri and Zurak communities in Wosa local government area of Plateau State, while 2 soldiers have been declared missing. Military sources disclosed that troops of Operation Enduring Peace (OPEP) thwarted the attack after receiving intelligence that armed bandits had mobilized about 200 motorcycles in preparation for an assault on Kampari community. The troops were immediately deployed and placed on red alerts to prevent the planned invasion. It was gathered that the attackers regrouped in large numbers and launched a second offensive on Zurak while troops were carrying out clearance operations in Sabongeri. Subsequently, the troops responded with superior firepower, forcing the criminals to flee with casualties. A military source disclosed a corporal was killed in action during the exchange of gunfire. His rifle and a rocket-propelled grenade tube were reportedly taken by the fleeing assailants. 2 other soldiers were declared missing in action. Troops are currently conducting search and rescue operations to recover the missing soldiers and civil police personnel. Also, arrangements are being concluded to evacuate the remains of the slain soldier to a morgue on February 3, 2026. The source described the attack as part of an emerging pattern where armed groups strike multiple locations simultaneously to distract security forces and conceal the primary target. From insecurity, we'll go to politics, where the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress APC, Professor Nentawe Yilwatda, says the opposition African Democratic Congress ADC is no match for the ruling party. Yilwatda, speaking with Sheon Kimbaloyi on television, downplayed the electoral value of some opposition coalition leaders like the ADC national chairman and ex-Senate President David Mark. He expressed confidence that the ruling party is a party to beat, citing some factors that had been attracting opposition governors into the APC fold. He dismissed claims that the APC is jittery of the opposition, stressing that contrary to insinuation, the ruling party is not forcefully recruiting civil servants into its fold. Take a listen.
Ahead of 2027,
yes,
you're not worried about the coming together of the members of the ADC?
Worried how?
You didn't see the caliber of people that are there? They have said that it is Nigerians against
give me the calibers.
APC.
No, give me the calibers.
Atiku Abubakar, Aminu Tambo,
One, that's wait I listen.
Peter Obi,
No, wait I listen.
Aisha Yusufu.
Wait I listen.
A lot of them.
Wait I listen.
David Mark.
Wait I listen.
Ralph Aregbesola. These are people who know your party so well.
For every one person they have, we may have 5, 6 of them. If they have David Mark as the former Senate President, we have His Excellency Ahmed Lawan. We have 2 Senate Presidents, former Senate Presidents who are in the Southeast.
So ADC is no match for your party?
I mean, not a match at all. For Aregbesola, who was former minister, former governor, we have maybe over 30, 40.
You imagine, Prof, that's a...
Meanwhile, the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, has harped on the role of traditional institutions in nation building and good governance. Speaking on a morning television show, Emir Sanusi said he does not need the constitution to advise the president or a state governor on issues affecting the nation. According to him, he has the authority to provide counsel to the constituted authorities from the people he leads. During the show, Sanusi rather emphasized the importance of inclusive political participation, calling for increased women representation in nation-building effort. Take a listen.
Now, when you begin to legislate these things, you remove that level of flexibility. Okay, because I said culture is dynamic. The relevance we have does not stem from the Constitution. To be honest, if politicians had their way, there'd be no emirs. There'd be no obese, honestly. Okay? The reason we exist is because the people want us and people respect us. And so long as we remain committed to our people, so long as we remain interested in their welfare, so long as they see that we are concerned about them, okay with them, we'll remain relevant. Now, when you begin to write things into the Constitution, what do you write? So you say you write a national constitution, but it already exists. And you say, okay, you have a national constitutional rulers, and their duty is to advise the president. Do I need to be told that I should advise the president? Do I need the Constitution to tell me that if I think there's something that the country needs, I should go to the president and say, Mr. President, I think this is wrong? I don't need the Constitution. I don't need a Constitution to tell the governor that I think this is what we should be doing. I get that authority from being a leader of the people. Now, I know there are people who think that, oh, we need to have something in the Constitution. And then what is in the Constitution that, oh, the treasurers are there to advise us? Fine. With or without.
You're doing that.
That's it. Okay. And we're not looking for power. I mean, we respect you have executive authority in the governor, you have legislative authority in the National Assembly. Times have moved. We used to make laws. Our predecessors used to make the laws. They used to be the judges. They had the courts. They had the police. They could arrest. They could jail. Times have moved. We've accepted that we're not going to go back. This is a democratic setting. We're not going to go back to those days of absolute monarchies. But the idea that you should have, and when you restrict that, it then becomes the institution becomes even more vulnerable. Because then it becomes easy to say, oh, you've gone outside the scope of what was written in the Constitution. So personally, maybe because I don't like being hemmed in by anyone, I don't want to be hemmed in. I want to have the freedom and the flexibility, okay, to go by my conscience and do what I want to do, okay, and then define for myself what I want as a role. And I think, so that's my view. Now, it is not the view of all traditional rulers, but it's my view.
You're currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll go straight to our analysis segment where we have Elvis Asia, legal practitioner and the current affairs analyst. Barrister Asia, thank you very much for joining us on the News at 12. Hello, Barrister, can you hear me?
Solomon, I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. So let's go to a major news item topic where the Senate on Tuesday, that's yesterday, again failed to conclude on deliberations on the proposed amendment of Electoral Act.
I'm sorry, Mr. Solomon, I can barely hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I can barely hear you.
Okay, let's see. if we can rectify that. Can you hear me now, sir? Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Okay, let's see if we can try that again.
Hello?
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Is it better now?
I can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello, sir. I can't. Can you hear me now? I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Hello, sir.
Yes.
This is better, right?
Yes, better.
Okay. So let's go to our first discussion where the Senate.
It's breaking again.
Oh, God. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think when you switch to the other mic, it seems to be breaking.
Okay. Is it better now?
Better now, yes.
Oh, okay. Looks like it's our console connection. I'm sure the technicians will rectify it. Now, the Senate on Tuesday again failed to conduct deliberations on the proposed amendment of Electoral Act after several hours in a closed-door meeting. Now, these Electoral Act amendments have been a major topic for discussion since after the 2023 general election, when it looks like there is a miscommunication between INEC and the voters in Nigeria when it comes to interpretation of electoral amendment, and there have been cries for that to be rectified, but it looks like it's some Nigerians who criticize that it's taken forever for the Senate to rectify this issue. What's your take on that?
Well, Solomon, it's quite unfortunate that the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, it's unfortunate they're not taking the issue as serious as is expected by Nigerians. It will appear from the actions of the Senate in the last few sittings that perhaps this is not a priority for them. Perhaps this is not part of the political agenda for the people that run the affairs of the country. Because we have seen how expeditious they can be when they want to be. But on a matter such as this, which is very, very central to the corporate existence of Nigeria, and in terms of democracy, it is unfortunate that it's not given the necessary attention that it deserves. This is also this is more worrisome when you look at the fact that the election has a cycle. There has to be preparations that has to be made, and that preparation is done on the basis of the existing law. And so, if the law is not amended as quickly as possible, it will then be that INEC and other stakeholders are unable to prepare within the legal framework that is expected to be enthroned by these amendments. If you know that, I'm sure by this February, INEC is supposed to give a notice of election and then begin to issue guidelines, begin to engage with stakeholders. And then the question you're going to ask yourself is which legal framework will be used. Obviously, it will be the old legal framework that is clearly diseased, that is clearly anti-people in the way a it has been interpreted. It is really very shocking that the Senate is not taking this seriously as they should, because like I said earlier, it appears that this is not part of what they need, the politicians need, even though it is what the people really need. But the people want to see credibility in the electoral process. And these amendments were meant to ensure that that credibility can be sustained when they are breached. Because what we have currently is that we invested so much money, billions, or even trillions of dollars or naira, into the electoral process, into electoral transmission, all of that. And then on the day of election, you switch it off. And then the court, endorses it because of the opaque and very vague legal framework that exists. And now we want to correct it, and you are lethargic about it, you are dragging your feet about it. It is unfortunate.
But is it really surprising though? Some people would argue that the Senate are doing it deliberately because, I mean, if they amend this electoral act, they may not be able to cheat in the coming election because most of them want to remain in power, for a long time. Do you agree with that assertion?
Well, I mean, the facts speak for itself. As a lawyer, you look at the facts, you look at the trend. If there is a process to ensure a true democratic electoral process in the country, an electoral process that the Nigerian people can be proud of, Nigerian people can go out and vote and be certain that the votes will reflect their wishes. If you are dragging your feet about that, the real conclusion that any reasonable person will reach is that you stand to gain from the status quo. And so you cannot blame those who are thinking that this perhaps might be that the Senate, and by extension the presidency and all of those who are involved in influencing processes in the country are not interested in this change. Because if they were interested, they would have gotten it through by now. We have seen them pass laws within the twinkle of an eye in this country when they want to. We have seen them, wake up and then, tell us that certain laws have been amended, certain laws have been made. We have seen all of this, and why are we not seeing this on this important issue? It's obvious that somebody will not benefit from it. If it was going to be beneficial to them, by now they would have done the needful. If they are not doing it, then the people and those who say that this must be that they want to continue the fraudulent, flawed electoral process that we had, particularly that very sad thing that they call election in 2023. It means that they want to continue with that, and that would be a very fair assessment by the people.
Now, the Senate said, defending the slow pace of the bill, said it will not rush the bill, citing the volume of, they're using the volume of post-election litigation after the 2023 polls and the need for careful legislative scrutiny. Do you agree with that excuse?
Why can't we achieve both? Why can't we achieve careful scrutiny of the bill and at the same time ensure that it is speedily done, in a manner that allow the next election cycle to benefit from the change that is sought to be introduced by the bill? Why can't we could do both? They have done it in so many other respects. They have re-rushed bills. What exactly are the issues? Is it what is the issue that is being talked about that requires forever for the Senate to fix? We're talking about ensuring that there's electronic transmission of results from polling units that the court can validate, not the one that is subjective or dependent on the discretion of INEC. So that even when INEC made regulations in 2023, clearly outlining the fact that results will be transmitted from polling units, and on the basis of that, hundreds of youths in this country turned out. They were at polling units trying to defend their votes, and only for them to switch off the system at midnight, and then come out with a result that many still believe was not reflective of that process. And so, since 2023, what have they been doing? Why didn't we expedite that process?
I mean, they've had 2 years. They've had 2 years to do enough scrutiny.
Yes, I mean, they've had enough time. They've had enough, and Solomon, there's nothing here. It's as simple as ABC. We want a system that guarantees that when you vote at a polling unit, it is correct, it is immediately reflected. So that, and then, the manual thing that they do to change these results must be consistent with that. If you do that, and we all agree on the system, and everybody and all the stakeholders have access to it, and are able to verify and audit it in a manner that ensures that that is what it was, then everybody will go to bed and be happy. Why do you want to delay a process that will ensure that votes truly count? Or is it that this is not democracy? I mean, many people will argue that this is not. This appears to be, governance of a few people who have access to power and are able to oppress other Nigerians by forcing their way through the process. Because if you want, the people, the voice of the people to count in the electoral process, then you should have given speed to this process. And I don't want to agree that they've not had enough time to scrutinize the bill. I believe this is deliberate.
Okay, to next topic, the United States has dispatched a small team of troops to Nigeria following the recent security operation between both countries. The AFRICOM General Gadfin Anderson made the disclosure with the first acknowledged of a U.S. boot on the ground in Nigeria since the Donald Trump presidency launched a missile strike targeting terrorists in Sokoto. Now, people are wondering why is the U.S. the country making this disclosure, making this announcement instead of the Nigerian government. It appears some would argue that the rumor that the government, the federal government, is not even aware of activities of U.S. in Nigeria. I mean, a situation like these will further give legitimacy to that rumor. What's your take?
Well, Solomon, you need to understand that, I mean, clearly, the assistance that the U.S. is offering, even the targeted airstrike that was carried out in Sokoto area the other time, these things were forced on Nigeria, right? The U.S. is using its power and influence to force Nigeria to accept, the U.S. To come in, into this conflict. And what that would tell you is that this conflict, unfortunately, the Nigerian government has allowed it to fester in such a manner that it has now become, many interests have gone into this conflict that we have in Nigeria. Whether you call it banditry, whether you call it Boko Haram, whether you call it SWAP, whether you call it, there's another one.
Terrorist, bandits, ISWAP.
Unfortunately, we couldn't nip the issues at the board at the beginning, and it has festered in such a manner that you now have international interest in this conflict. Every conflict that has gone on for this long usually will have countries supporting it. Yeah. And I'm sure that what the U.S. wants to do is to protect its interests, perhaps against other powers in the world that may have interest also in this. So eventually, what typically happens is that this becomes a proxy war. It becomes a war between other countries.
U.S., Russia, China.
that can create a lot of problems. We have seen it. We have seen it in Sudan. We have seen it in so many countries.
In Libya too.
In Africa, even in the world. And that is the danger. And that is the danger that you put yourself if you allow. Because of political interest, because of religious sentiments, you allow this kind of thing to fester. We took some very dangerous decisions in the fight against terrorists in this country. Some groups, initially didn't even want to recognize them as terrorists. If you take your mind back to the Jonathan regime, when a section of the country, they came out to say that, the fight against Boko Haram was actually a fight against the North, which was not supposed to be the case.
Yeah.
The Jonathan administration hired some mercenaries who were making inroads, who were making attempts, but all of that were stopped when the new government came in. The new government began to do some people that were captured. There were stories that many of them were now reintegrated into the society.
That there was a sabotage somewhere.
And so we have empowered them. We have seen a lot of infiltrations. We have seen clear cases of where information gets to the bandits, the terrorists, so fast in such a manner that before the military, go to get them, they already have the information, and that's because of the way and manner the Buhari administration treated, what they call non-kinetic approach, which is very stupid. I'm sorry to use the language. I don't know what that means. Somebody has come with guns and ammunition to harm your citizens, to kill people, and then you are talking about reintegrating them. The only way you can do that is if you have completely subdued them. And to subdue them is to, is to match that energy, is to, is to finish them with all the might of the nation. And I don't want to believe that we didn't have the capacity at the time to really do the job. I think the issue was, we mixed terrorism with religion, we mixed terrorism with politics, we mixed terrorism with all these sentimental issues that all these sentimental diseases that are afflicting the country, and in the process we allow it to grow. And in such a manner that even there were stories of terrorists being found in the houses of politicians hiding. So, it's unfortunate we have gotten to this point. And at this level, what you now have are international interests. If the US is pushing like this, I want to believe there's something. There's a major reason why they are pushing. It's obvious that their interests might be undermined by people or some other countries who are maybe also sponsoring a segment of these groups. And they want to, protect. So it's beyond Nigeria for the US. The US is not a savior. The US is not Father Christmas. When the US wants to go into any conflict, it's usually because it has looked at it has taken a holistic view about a particular conflict, and it has seen that it's going to
benefit them one way or the other.
The authority in the power dynamics in the world, and maybe now or on the long term. And so to forestall that, they will come in. They are not coming in to save Nigeria. They are coming in to protect their interests. And it's unfortunate that Nigeria allowed it to get to this point.
Indeed. It's always a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you very much for your time, Barrister Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Yeah. That was LV Zasia, a legal practitioner and current affairs analyst. For a quick look at what's happening outside Nigeria, Russia's attack on Ukraine's energy sector on Monday night as temperatures dropped to minus 20 Celsius, that's minus 4 Fahrenheit, were barbaric and particularly depraved, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said. He made the comments after speaking to U.S. President Donald Trump hours after Russia hit power plant and critical infrastructure in the capital Kyiv and elsewhere. It comes at the end of a week-long pause that Trump had asked Russia's President Vladimir Putin to observe as a fierce cold swept Ukraine. Trump told reporters that Putin had kept his word and that he would like him to end the war. U.S. envoys are meeting Ukrainian and Russian negotiators in Abu Dhabi to iron out talks. The U.S. president has been leading efforts to end the war, but his Russian counterpart has refused calls for a ceasefire. The damage from Russia's last attacks has been extensive, with more than 1,000 tower blocks in Kyiv without heating, and a power plant in the eastern city of Kharkiv are beyond repair. Residents have been forced to spend the night sheltering in metro stations, with some pitching tents on the platforms to protect them from the freezing cold. In other sports news, Morocco's Football Federation says it will appeal disciplinary sanctions and fines imposed by the Confederation of African Football (CAF) after the chaotic scenes at the Africa Cup of Nations AFCON final against Senegal last month. The Royal Moroccan Football Federation (FRMF) was fined a total of $315,000 last month, added to bans against two of its players. In a statement, the FRMF said it would lodge an appeal in order to preserve all rights guaranteed by the regulations, citing non-conformity of these sanctions with the extent and seriousness of the incident that occurred. The AFCON final on January 18 took a series of dramatic turns from late in regular time when an Ismaila Sarr goal was disallowed for a foul on 2025 AFCON Player of the Year Achraf Hakimi. Morocco were then awarded a penalty when forward Brahim Diaz was fouled, sparking fierce Senegalese protest. Morocco missed the long-delayed penalty with a weak shot from Diaz, saved by Edouard Mendy. The match then went to extra time, and Pape Gueye scored to give Senegal a second AFCON title. While play was halted over the disputed penalty, some Senegal supporters threw projectiles and others temporarily invaded the pitch before police and security staff intervened. Morocco was fined $200,000 for the inappropriate behavior of the stadium ball boys. Another fine of $100,000 was imposed for the improper conduct of players and technical staff who invaded the VAR review area and obstructed the work of the Congolese referee. There was also a $15,000 fine for Moroccan supporters who used lasers to try and distract Senegalese players. And for unsporting behavior, Moroccan forward Ismail Saibari was handed a 3-match ban and a fine of $100,000, while captain and defender Achraf Hakimi was suspended for 2 matches. The Senegal Football Federation (FSF), which was fined a total of $615,000 for various offenses during the final, and whose head coach Pape Thiaw was banned for 5 games, also said it will appeal the sanctions. And before we go, here again are our top stories. Senate fails to conclude Electoral Act amendment after hours of deliberation. U.S. send ground troops to Nigeria after December strike. We also brought a story that several killed, houses and others burned as a bandit attack Katsina community. And ADC is no match for APC, says National Chairman Nentawe Yilwatida. On the international scene, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer criticizes Russian attacks on Ukraine energy site. And in sports, Morocco to appeal AFCON bans and fines after final chaos. And that's a wrap on the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon Ofem. Do follow our social media handles at VOP903FM. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP903FM. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.